Might need to update the website, John.
I think you need to throw a yes up there, and I think you need to stop the countdown. Mark Davis would tell you, hold up, I have $67 million more money.
We are recording this video, YouTube only, on Monday night. This was the story today. Pelissaro. This came shortly after you texted me a New York Times link, and I'm like, that's never good. It's not. I guess it can be good sometimes, but usually not good, especially when it's leaked emails. And Gruden went from quick apology, hopefully the DeMaurice Smith thing, I thought might lead to a suspension. That's what I thought. Like, if I'm him, I'm thinking a suspension, I apologize, I move on. He's out. He's out.
I forwarded to you after probably 4 or 5 people from just actually all over the country, just football fans, random friends that I know, forwarded me that email. And every single one of them, they forwarded the email on text, Dunzo, he's cooked. It's over. And these are guys that, politically are all over the spectrum. So it wasn't just everyone. And then immediately, once you see that, you click on it and you go, God, he's probably in some trouble. Now,
he's checking every box in those emails.
I was still like, listen, I mean, it's just pro sports is the ultimate reality show. You cannot make this shit up, especially the National Football League. You couldn't have written this in a script. I mean, this is insane, especially today, coming out, the emails he's sending, talking shit about Roger Goodell. You got Florio tweeting that clearly the NFL, and you just kind of add it up, someone is trying to get Jon Gruden to tap out, and ultimately, I've seen a couple. Schefter said one thing, someone else said it. Like, did Mark Davis force him to resign? Was he going to fire him and then figure it out later? Did John just go to him and resign? However, the semantics, and I'm sure it'll come out over the next 3 or 4 days, for it to end that fast, like that thing got the article got put out within 2 hours. Now, I'm sure Mark Davis and the Raiders and the league knew about it.
Schefter, that's the part that Schefter said, is that Monday morning the NFL sent the emails to the Raiders to let them handle it, right? Like, hey, you guys do this.
Now, on just a big picture thought is, let's face it, was this a little bit of a lifeline for Mark Davis? Like, this was a situation back to that countdown that was not going well. Now, you would never, if you're an owner, the players on the team, I truly feel bad for the Raider fans. I mean, they have been through a lot of shit, and they did not. Like, this is something out of their control. It's one thing if your coach, who looked a little over his head at times and make bad personnel moves and draft the wrong guys. Belichick, Bill Walsh, every single coach in the history of the league have done that, right? Had a bad game, drafted the wrong player, made a wrong call on game day. But for them, I would say, Guy, in like a 7-day span, they were 3-0 and kind of getting universal praise. Like, this team's pretty good. We had given them praise. They look good. To lose 2 games in a row and then to have Jon Gruden be gone by Monday night going into, what is this, week 6? It's just insanity. It's just insanity.
Yeah, you're right about that point, which is the Raider fans deserve better than what they've gotten from their organization. And maybe they'll stumble into it here. Because I put it up, let's read this. In reverse order, the one at the bottom is older, and then the one at the top came. PFT Florio, there's some high-level chest check. This is before he resigned. There's some high-level chest checkers going on with Gruden. The league doesn't want to suspend him. The league wants the Raiders to fire him. The league will likely keep leaking more emails until the Raiders fire him. Friday's leak, that was the DeMaurice Smith, was the first torpedo the NFL fired at Gruden. He tried to fix the damage instead of abandoning ship, even when he knew how many other torpedoes were in the water. I don't think we were talking about this the other day when I made the point to you, like, if you're trying to take somebody down and you've got pieces of evidence, you don't release them all at once. Because I think one of the things that, in addition to the content of what he wrote that gets a reaction, is when you put out a piece, you let somebody deny that thing as if that's the only thing they did wrong. And then you go, let's make him look like a fraud. And you dump a bunch more stuff on him. So to me, that step by step is a pretty textbook way of kind of, I'm not using this in the modern term but like dragging somebody, right? In terms of, I don't think he's getting dragged here. What I just mean is you drag it out, You make them make a comment.
It's like a slow burn.
Yeah, you make it so they can't do one comment to address everything. Because he couldn't have another apology press conference tomorrow, right? I think that became clear.
The one thing I would say, and I'm probably the opposite of ever a Gruden apologist. He had said after the first batch of emails about DeMaurice Smith and the comments that he made that, basically that's not who he was. He doesn't remember sending those emails. I would say anyone our age or older has been sending emails for multiple decades. And anyone watching this has probably been a part of some email chains, maybe over a decade ago, that would be deemed highly inappropriate. And I'm not even talking about writing specific comments, just things getting forwarded we're all part of. Is there a chance that when he says, like, I don't remember, like, he actually doesn't remember? Like, do you
absolutely.
remember emails?
I think
now, he was clearly, like, they were all addressed to Bruce Allen, so he had to be thinking, like, I've sent a lot of emails to Bruce Allen, and they're clearly coming after both of us.
Yeah, this is a non-Gruden comment I'm about to make, but yes, I absolutely believe there's a million things. The idea that if someone doesn't remember something,
that they're lying.
Yeah, they're lying. I've always rejected. I guess I've never really had a reason to talk about it, but I've always thought that's a little crazy.
I you agree to the older you get, the farther you get removed from different parts of your life.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But I'm not. Remember. I forget things all the time. Like I just forgot why I was making that comment to you the other day. I think one of the great accidental words that I've ever heard that really has a use was when Roger Clemens used the word misremembered. I think it was Clemens. Was Clemens or McGuire? I think it was Clemens. Misremembered during testimony. Like misremembered is a great word. I was talking to somebody the other day. There was a Ryan Day piece on College Game Day. Did you see it?
No.
Really good. His dad committed suicide when he was young. I did not know that about Ryan Day, Ohio State's coach. Either. I don't want to do a spoiler alert here, but I started telling somebody about it, and then I realized I was mixing up Ryan Day's story and an episode of Ted Lasso. So yeah. Now that said, this is one of those situations where you go, well, you don't remember. Okay, well, here are the words. Let me read them back to you. Right. So that's where it gets a little difficult to defend. To me, the discussion should not be, does he remember it or not? It's just, you start going down the list and you're like, you're checking all these boxes, multiple different gay slurs one about Roger, one about Michael Sam, NFL female refs, somehow getting tied up. The Washington football team, part of their whole thing was they made cheerleaders do a topless photo shoot and then like invited suite holders to the photo shoot. And then the email chain involved topless photos. I don't know that the New York Times article directly linked those two things, but I would guess those two things are related. So it's, remember or not, there is a checklist here of like, whoop, that's a problem. Whoop, that's a problem. Whoop, that's a problem. So when you said, you got multiple people texting you that he's done, the one thing I thought, the only hesitation I had when you asked me that question earlier when we were texting was, I don't think there is, tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's an NFL owner that probably considers himself closer to his coach than Mark Davis considers himself with Jon Gruden. Not Jed York and Shanahan, certainly not Bill and Kraft.
But I would say their relationship in terms of, they don't hang out or whatever. I mean, these guys were going to fights together. You're right. I mean, they had been close for over 20 plus years, right? I mean, it was a legitimate relationship.
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
I don't think so. That was the one thing I thought.
It's very unique to the variables, right? He was the son of the owner at the time, and then he begged him to come back several times, and he finally got him for $100 million. To me, Guy, the elephant in the room is back to the lifeline. Like Mark, I'm not saying that Mark wanted to fire him. No one knows if Mark was proud of how it had been going through the first 3 years. It hadn't been smooth, but he had a rock star head coach in theory to go into this new stadium in this new city. But now he gets an opening that, let's face it, before Jon, it took $100 million to get Jon to agree to come. That's what it took. So they're close friends, but it's not like he came for 70. It cost 100. And now he has the ability with a pretty cool stadium, a cool city, a quarterback, some pieces, maybe the job for the first time. Because even when he hired Gruden, it wasn't that desirable, right? Does he have a desirable job?
Like you said, he had to pay him $100 million.
Is the job desirable now, or is this a little, is there some toxicity around it still?
Yeah, I mean, there's some toxicity around it. I don't think it's Gruden. I don't think it's left behind by Gruden. I just think organizationally, you
They got some
go,
issues.
are there enough people in charge around here? Like you had Bedane was out. That would be my question is like, is this organization being run the way an NFL organization gets run?
The question would be, or the answer would be no.
Yeah, and I think the search is a part of that, right? Like you mentioned to me, I'd forgotten this, that Ron Wolf basically handed them I almost said Khalil McKenzie, Reggie McKenzie. Then when it's time for a new coach, it's Gruden. I guess they made it time for a new coach. They pushed Del Rio out to hire Gruden. It's not like Del Rio was getting fired in that moment, or like the job was vacated. Is there a net? We've talked about this before. Like, does Mark Davis have a network to help him in a circumstance like this? Maybe Mike Mayock just depends on his relationship with Mayock. Mayock might have just gotten possession of an NFL franchise. Yeah. The other thing I was thinking too is, and this is not a unique thought, but like, is there more? Was there about to be more? Like, you go back to,
I think that's pretty clear.
To Florio's comments, it does feel in this case like Florio knows more than he's saying. And that's the other part. And if there was more, the Raiders might have known what that more was, right? Did the NFL give them everything on Monday? And was it about to get worse?
I think this is a story.
Because that's the one part. I just, sorry to finish that point. Is like when you say, "Oh, he should have been fired." It's like, well, even if you think none of that stuff was bad enough, resign. There is this feeling like, well, that wasn't all of it, and who knows? Maybe the worst of it never saw the light of day. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
I would say it probably still does. Just usually in these situations, I'm really guy. And I have been since the Tom Pelissaro's first tweet saying that a staff member informed him Gruden told him he's done. He's going to resign. I think this is, some coaching stints. We're in our mid-30s. Like, we didn't experience Lou Holtz with the Jets. I don't really remember Spurrier with Washington. I was younger. Patino a little bit with the Celtics. Now, I'm not comparing these situations apples to apples, but this is just an all-time. There probably will never be another hype machine for a guy that's not coaching, right? There's Lincoln Riley's got a big hype machine, right? David Shaw had one for a long time. Chip Kelly, but they were coaching. This guy left the league, the hype machine, and then it came back and it was like, oh, seriously? Like, it was an all-time flame out. It really was. And I think it'll be remembered. It's going to age poorly. And I think it went pretty poorly. But I think it's going to age really, really like he's going to be the cream of the crop of that. Like, you remember that, right? Of just that short stint for a coach. And also, let's face it, his contract enabled all of us, myself and I was guilty, of just him being a constant kind of a joke, a sarcastic remark. Like, he was always included in that. And for a brief moment in 2021, it looked like, fuck, did he figure it out? For a brief moment. And then it ended. Because he didn't.
Yeah.
He just got killed by the Bears. Now, did that email from the D. Smith thing impact the players? I don't know. Like, the Raiders were liable to have that happen to them before.
It's funny you said it because I have a buddy that works in the league that texted me this late Sunday night. And he's like, what was his text? I can't wait to hear what you say about the Raiders, because he's a Raider fan. I can't wait to hear what you say about the Raiders. And I was like, well, honestly, we didn't really talk about the Bears game that much. And his reply Monday morning was like, it's over. I was like, what do you mean it's over? Gruden's fired? He's like, no, I mean, like, this team, they're done this year. I was like, seriously, that fast? He's like, yeah, I think they're done. Like, he thought they were done as a Raider fan. Now, maybe some people disagree with that. But
I flipped it on Game Pass. I could only make it through like half. It's a pretty boring. It was a lifeless environment, right? Because the Bears only threw for 100 yards. It was a tough game to. I couldn't make it. It was like, ugh. It kind of had like a Jets, Jags feel to it. You're right. Now, it could have been a carry. I don't know.
Now here's the thing: they might
have been thrown off.
They might. They do have good players. Like, they could win a bunch of. We'll see. They could win some football games here.
I do think it's going to be a pretty tough situation for everyone involved.
Well, Jon Gruden is their offensive. It's like he's their offensive guy.
Derek Carr, from 2014 to on Wikipedia where it says /present, has seen a lot of shit, guy. Like, he's been through. He's seen it all. There can't be many people whose of in his era, right, of the last decade, who's experienced more craziness. A lot of people have jumped around teams or whatever, but it's his NFL experience is just an all-timer. And yet he's loyal.
This is why when we talked about Rodgers, like should would they trade Rodgers to the Raiders for Carr? It's like, well, if I'm Carr, I sure hope so. I could go to the Packers, or would they trade the Seahawks? I go to the Seahawks. Yeah, I mean, I get it. They paid him, but he's very loyal to that organization. Nothing but a positive face of that organization by and large, and the organization does not pay him back. Derek
Raiders Broncos this week at Mile High.
Benjamin Albright, speaking of Broncos in Denver, wouldn't be surprised if Mayock is still the GM to see him pursue Dabo Sweeney.
I mean, that's a tweet.
He drafts all the Clemson Tigers. Dabo didn't always said, like, we start paying players, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah. They're having a tough year.
They're having a tough year. DJ Uiagalelei.
That's a pretty good tweet. Sign me up for that.
So's this.
I had to do a scroll. I have a lot of Niners and Raiders related pictures in my 5,000 pictures on my phone. So I'll just do a big scroll, and I just stumbled upon it, and I said, that's the one. I don't ever know what I'm going to get, but I know there's something in the box, and I'll find it, and I'll go, yep.
You can never find what you're looking for unless you go looking for nothing and letting it find you.
Can you go back to that picture again?
Absolutely.
2014, Jim Harbaugh is battling to make the playoffs. The Raiders had just won their first. They were 1-11 at the time. Harbaugh has a chipped tooth. It's basically well known that he's about to get fired in 3 weeks. There is conversations. Will Mark Davis go after Jim Harbaugh? Remember? Mm-hmm. So it was that was not a random picture I took. I took that picture. I was standing there. That was a conversation.
You took this photograph. You took that photo.
I was there. Yeah. You and I were having, right? Would Jim Harbaugh coach the Raiders? Once upon a time, that was a conversation to be had.
Yeah. Do you remember the comment? I had forgotten until I Googled it.
No.
Kawakami spoke to Mark Davis after the fact and asked, what did you guys talk about? What did you say? And Mark said to Jim, you stole our dysfunction. That's supposed to be our thing.
That's a great line. They were 1-11 at the time. Now, the Raiders, if you remember, kind of kicked their ass that game. Really took it to them. And Kaepernick gave a pretty surly post-game press conference. Remember? He was angry.
Was there a halftime situation running into the tunnel with him and C.O. Moore?
Yeah, there was. Yep, that's the game. That's the game. Kaepernick and Lowell Cone got after it after that game in a little presser.
That's right.
Yeah, it was good. These were fun times in the Bay Area football world.
It's at different points in time, Raider fans and Niner fans have both thought we're too negative, and that's for Tuesday's podcast. But yeah, I mean that's we've seen some wild stuff. The Niners and Raiders have delivered both some incredible stuff.
Yeah, I would imagine the podcast, by the time we record this Tuesday midday, there'll be some, a lot of more information will come out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine that as well. And it might be some more. I don't know that to me, that doesn't necessarily mean the details of the emails, but
no, exactly.
When did it become clear that it could go this way for John?
I'm not trying to jump the put the cart before the horse here, but the Raiders do have a job opening. Like you said, Dabo, like they were going to be, how we do this, right? I mean, it's just, I think the job's kind of intriguing. Vegas, the stadium, the quarterback. Like there could be some outrageous names. 5 years ago, Dabo, we would have laughed you, off the Twitter. But now, who knows? I could see, I wouldn't put it past anybody. Would you?
No. There's a million tentacles here, and Mike Mayock maybe just getting a franchise all of a sudden.
I've heard so many different things with his status. That to me is one of the most fascinating. Yeah, no,
and if it's not him, then it's fascinating in another way.
Well, don't you think that's a story that maybe not by tomorrow, but definitely by the latest Sunday morning news leak, Mike Mayock will be asked to help lead a search, right?
Yeah,
or not.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yeah. I know you've gotten a lot of theories. I've gotten a lot of theories. Love theories. Pratik on Twitter asked, do you think there's a chance Mark Bedane knew this was coming and resigned, or at least wanted Gruden fired ahead of the impending and rightful storm, and the league had these emails for quite a while?
I have a hard. I mean, I love that theory. I just have a hard
Keep
time.
the creative juices going, guys.
I just think it's a league office led thing. Roger Goodell or one of his minions pushing this. I mean, Gruden did call him a pussy, so that's my theory. My connection. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine there is more to it than just they've probably had several interactions behind the scenes, conference calls, who knows what, right? Plenty of time for people to build up hate for one another. Because you're right, like why there is a question of what was the NFL's end game. Now, the NFL might have, if the emails were going to get leaked anyway, then the NFL had to get ahead of it. But if the NFL leaked the emails, why were they after Gruden? Now, maybe they weren't. Maybe it was like they're going, this is coming out. We do not like the last thing we need is to cover up for Jon Gruden.
I had people in the law industry,
offices of
just people that work in that kind of realm. That just say once this gets handed off, even to the league, a lot of people, because it's not like the partners, they don't go through every email, right? So it's several. I don't know, they're not interns, like paralegals or whatever, the people on the lowest. You work your way up, everyone's siphoning through. It does touch a lot of hands once 650,000 emails. There is no way the guy making $7 million a year that runs a law firm is the guy going through every single one, right?
Well, here's what I think the answer. When I asked that question, like, is it as simple as a Goodell beef? Could be. But you just,
that seems a little too basic.
Yes. And it's not that hard if you write emails that include multiple gay slurs, mocking female referees. There's enough.
Yeah.
Like he could have defended multiple different people who go,
I know
this guy needs to be exposed. It's not a one-off. This is a pattern.
Well,
right?
That's the thing. To me, you could.
And by the way, like some straight white dude could have been pissed off and like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, could just hate Jon Gruden. Right.
But I'm just saying, like, you might not know a thing about Jon Gruden. You start reading, you go, who the fuck is this guy?
Well, look at the places it got leaked to, right? It wasn't Schefter. It wasn't Rap Sheet. It wasn't to Jay times. Now, it could be a Roger. Those type of people want to keep you off the scent. So it's like, hey, man, we had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Because if I said Glazer or Florio, it's clear it's coming from NFL people. But you go Wall Street Journal, New York Times, it could that to me opens the where it's coming from to a lot of different options.
Yeah.
It's hard to like, you agree though, if like Florio had got this or Glazer had got this or Schefter had got this, it would have felt very NFL-y.
Yeah. Yep.
Where this, it's like, I could be convinced or I mean, I'm not, who knows, we may never find out, but all these theories, I give a little credence to every single theory I read.
Yep, so do I. And it's pretty easy to make up your own, where you go, somebody who had no affiliation with the NFL read these emails and went, this person we should expose this person. This person's the coach of a team.
That seems a little, though, like, because think how much other shit was probably in those emails with the football team. That's an easy one. That's where I go back to, it does feel Gruden people hate him, and he hates some people, and he's just an aggressive guy that it feels. I have a hard time even to now counter my take.
Yeah,
that it still feels very NFL.
Safe space for theories. I had a theory. I don't know. While we're just throwing stuff at the wall, maybe there was some. Is there a path? You and I have long wondered, would the NFL try in some way to take the Raiders from Mark Davis? Right, as an owner, he is not one of them, and there's actually something likable about that. And him, but that was, did somebody view this as maybe a path to that end game? Again, seems like a leap, but
because he just has nothing to do with this. You could write former
ESPN
employee.
Yeah,
right.
Doesn't have anything to do with it unless he defends him.
Yeah, which he didn't.
No, did you see his statement? It was like, we've let
very
Jon,
short.
You've accepted his resignation, which I mean, when did he find out about it? If Mark Davis found out about it like Monday, like all this other stuff, maybe he's known for several days. I would imagine he's pretty shell-shocked, even if he's known about it for 3-4 days. Again, he went all in. This was his guy. This was his pitch. This was the pitch that Mark Davis had to throw, and he threw it, and he nailed it. And it was like, look, I pulled it off. The thing, for years, people trying to get him to come back. I pulled it off, and it blows up like this. We talked over the years so many times about like some variation of how long would Gruden make it? Would he make it to 10 years? How much money would he make? All of that.
Colts just missed field goal.
And of course, and we could have polled. I think we literally have pulled every person in America, and not one person would have had this end game on October 11th. I don't know. Maybe somebody would have had it, but here it is.
Yeah, crazy, man.
I'm sure we'll get more details, and we'll be here to address it. Don't forget, we do a podcast. We'll be talking more about this live on YouTube on Tuesday and through our podcast. The podcast is linked down in the description below. If you're watching this before we did the next podcast, then you won't get the next podcast. But if you're watching this after we did the latest podcast, then you'll get that one.
Yeah, if we were lazy, we could repurpose this, but we won't.
We could just send this out on the podcast blast.
Yeah, we could. Not a terrible idea.
Not a bad idea at all.